Look, maybe the guy's running the craziest con game of all time.
Yeah.
And he's just a super genius and way smarter than me, and he tricked me, and he thinks it's hilarious. Or maybe he saw some shit.
I've got some good news and bad news. I'll give you the bad news first. We've been scammed again.
There's really no way I can prove it.
I had no indication that he's full of shit.
Zero bullshit meter?
I told George Knapp all this stuff, and he said, well, let's just get it on tape. Should something happen, at least we have a record of it.
What do you think, honestly?
There was parts of me that said maybe I'm just dumber than this guy and he's like really manipulative, and maybe he just knows how to tell a story and
You're
stick
pretty
with
fucking
it.
Keen, dude.
I know, but it's a tricky thing, man. You can get cocky.
At some point, George wanted to air it, and he said, you make the call on it, and look, if at any point you change your mind, we won't air it. And it came down to the day where George wants to put it on the 5 o'clock news. He said, hey, this is important stuff. People have to know about it. And I thought it was too.
Yeah, but I feel like you talk to enough fucking people who are and aren't full of shit that your meter is higher than most.
I'm also nice.
I was the co-anchor of the 5 o'clock news with Paula Francis, and our newscast back then featured a nightly interview segment. The guest we had scheduled for that day bailed on us at the last minute, so I placed a call to famed aviator John Lear because he'd been telling me he knew someone who'd been hired to work at an ultra-secret military base near Groom Lake.
George said, today's the day we got to put it on the news, or something to that effect. And when it came right down to the time to air it, I changed my mind and I said, we're not doing it.
We had no idea the interview would still be of interest 30 years later.
So when I'm trying to talk to someone, I want things to work out well.
You're giving the benefit of the doubt often.
I want them to have a good time when we're talking. I don't want to confront people.
Yeah,
even if I angrily disagree with every fiber in my being. As I've gotten older and better at talking to people, I avoid that kind of conflict.
Right.
I don't think it's necessary.
But I just think your bullshit meter is keen enough where you'd be like,
I think it's super cocky to say that.
He's a fucking liar. And if you believe that guy or any of this shit about Roswell that we have UFO, eat a red dick.
Here's the thing, man. When you've told a story for as many years, as many times as he did, this is a fucked up one, but I can't say what he told me. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe the guy who gave you that information did work there, but is also feeding you horseshit?
Look into it.
The others I just briefly saw, and they pretty much varied. I give everything nicknames there. I was paid by the Department of Naval Intelligence, and what they're doing, researching extraterrestrial craft, is beyond me, but that's where my checks came from, so I can only assume that they were in charge of that.
And they tried to deny that. They tried to erase it. That alone tells me, just the fact that they tried to say that he didn't exist, he never worked at Los Alamos Lab.
That's
freaking me out,
huge
man.
freaky.
Because in the 1980s, you don't think they could just erase your past?
Right.
You don't think that they could just erase your birth certificate or erase your medical records or erase your dental records? They could do whatever they wanted back then.
There's no knowledge of the college he went to, and he went to Pierce College.
Thank you.
Look, there's a lot of other stuff that you gotta go, I don't know. How do you prove that? How do you explain that?
Well,
I don't know.
Isn't that like anything in our world? What do you believe in?
The big questions is the education background. That was a big one.
What do you mean, credibility-wise?
No, whether or not he actually was educated at a certain place. It's super hard to be consistent if you're just making everything up.
Oh my God.
It was
when you do
though.
betray government secrets, if there are military courts that you go to jail,
you have to go to prison.
Yeah, there are guys that hunt you down. I had plenty of those guys call me and text me too. They were like, hit me up on DMs. They're like, hey dude, just so you know, I work for a television agency. It's my job to hunt those guys down.
If they start snitching, it doesn't work like that.
There's a whole system.
It's super hard to have things that you're saying back then that everybody says don't even exist.
Right.
Eventually turn out to be true. But one of the most fascinating is some of the things that he's said that people said was horseshit has been proven to be true. Like one of the things, the biometric reader that measured length of the bones in your hand, and that they're unique as a fingerprint. And people are like, what are you talking about? And then they actually found out that this was something they really did have, and they have photos of this thing now.
A lot of stuff he was describing is actually from a movie that you can look up. That's from the 80s.
I love it.
His initial story had something to do with this thing called Element 115, which most people, I mean, they didn't even recognize that it actually existed until much later, right?
When did he start talking about it?
And there's this very heavy element fuel, element 115, something that wasn't on our periodic charts at the time.
But it is now.
It is now, yeah.
When did it become on the periodic table now, the charts now?
You know, I don't remember. Do you remember when they...
2004, Darmstadt, Germany, I think, is where they first fabricated 4 atoms. They lasted 220 milliseconds with the atoms. It's nothing.
But at the end of the day, this guy is obviously smart as fuck, and he's a scientist that definitely worked at Los Alamos Lab. There's a record of him there.
Right.
But you got to look into it. It's
Okay. This element 115 was the fuel.
Yeah, it was the fuel.
The world will forgive you for having a migraine. Can I just
It's really
say
hard to
one-
think through
I
this.
understand.
Just give me a minute.
We'll just give you more
I just want to
booze.
say, yeah, definitely.
He did have a migraine. He did have a
He was getting
migraine.
migraines.
He did have a migraine, though.
Fake migraines. He was getting fake migraines.
I was going to say one thing. You know, Bob, for the last 30 years, people have just been on the attack on Bob, you know, getting to know him, the personal effects on his life. It's really hard to understand unless you meet his family and his wife. I mean, this is the last thing he wanted to fucking do, was have to talk.
And what I realized is I was like, oh, this guy, he's actually batshit crazy. Not only that, he's a nerd who found a way to get a little bit of notoriety, and people surround him, and it gives him fame.
You're not buying it at
Probably
all.
got him laid. What's that?
You're not buying it at all.
The crazy guy named Lazar on Lazar.
Lazar.
Who gives a
I
shit?
call him Lazar.
The crazy Lazar on
Laser.
Rogan.
Did you
Buying
tell
it?
Rogan?
Nah, I can't wait.
Oh, I can't wait for the next fight campaign.
It's all a fucking lie.
I'm just
It's
gonna
all a
Rogan.
lie. Yeah, it's all a lie.
I can see that. I see both sides.
No. There's no. Hold on. What? There's not both sides. No. There's only one side. And if you believe there's another
think he's
side,
full of shit.
eat a fucking green
dick.
Dick.
There's been detractors. There's been a bunch of people that called bullshit on many of the things that you've said, but over time, many of the things that you talked about, even in the 80s, have proven to be true. Things that people said were not true were proven to be true. Element 115 was one of them.
And hey, Joe, the guy who doesn't
they're
suffer
same guy.
fools at all.
Same guy.
Who doesn't suffer fools at all. Why would you give that guy some time?
That's why I'm asking you if you think that he might have been lying to you.
I don't believe he was
feeding
lying
you
whatsoever.
disinformation. Was that later or before?
That was before.
This is
Wait, what's
American.
that before?
Hard, so many years.
Yeah, I can't.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
The days have fused together. It's so hard to separate what happened in each visit to the
Do you remember
place.
the thought process when you read that it's from Zeta Reticuli?
And now this isn't something that I determined, it's something I was told, that the crafts originated from a planet that orbited the Zeta Reticuli star system. Zeta Reticuli 1 and Zeta Reticuli 2 are two stars of a binary star system. The craft allegedly came from there.
It was good fiction. It wasn't even good fiction. It sucked.
6 million viewers.
Oh, God.
People are into it.
1 or 2 autopsy photographs I saw dealt with just a small photograph, a bust shot essentially, just head, shoulders, and chest of an alien where the chest was cut open in T fashion and one single organ was removed.
So either he's running the greatest 30-year con of all time, or maybe this really did happen.
How specifically did the briefings detail how the aliens manipulated our genetics over the centuries?
It mentioned 65 or 63 corrections or additions to the genetic makeup that finally resulted in a human creature.
I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think we're all God's children wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held. if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe, we'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together.
When you look into it,
You gotta look into it.
look into it.
I've been
When you
looking
look
into
into it, hey, think about this. Think about how crazy that religion is.